Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Stamperia Ooh La La mini album tutorial series designed for Scrap and Create. As a reminder, all of the products that I am using from the Ooh La La collection are linked in the description box below to the Scrap and Create website, so you can just go ahead and click on those links to purchase all of these products to follow along with the tutorial. So let's get started. In today's video, we're going to begin decorating the front and back of page 1 using the Ooh La La papers. And one of the things that I would recommend doing before you get started with any decorating, just to make this process go faster, is to take your collectible sheets and start fussy cutting these images. These are the pages that I did not fussy cut from because I don't know for sure how many of these images I'll be using, but the other papers I've cut them completely because I will be using many of them. I may come back to this sheet and fussy cut some of these girls too, just depending, but I cut the other ones from the sheets and I'll be using those first. So that'll make this process go a lot faster as we're building up these pages. The first thing that we're going to do, I have a piece of 3-inch ribbon here, and I've marked the center on my front flap. Now I'm going to add my adhesive here and create a little pull tab for my flap. You can do this just straight like this and put it down, but I'm going to curl mine over like this and place it down, so it's just a little bit more decorative. So I will flatten this here just so that it doesn't bulk up underneath my paper, and it's just a little bit of a pull tab so that you know to lift that. I will put a magnet underneath of it, but this will just kind of be a way to lift that up. From the 8x8 paper, I did cut this. So this is 4 3/4 by 8 inches. I've inked my edges and rounded these 2 corners on the left-hand side. And I'm going to adhere this piece here to my front cover. I do have my pieces for my front cover here that I'm going to embellish, but I'm going to put these on last so that it is flat whenever I open this to decorate the rest of these. So I'm going to come here next, and I'm going to place one of my magnets on my flap. And I'm just going to be placing this right towards the center, up and down and side to side, because it's going to be catching here on this flap. And I'm going to take the remaining piece of the paper and place it here. This is 3 1/4 by 8 inches, and I'm going to cover my magnet with this paper. Once the magnet is covered with the paper, I will go ahead and place my coordinating magnet on top, then remove the backing and close this to place my magnet in the correct position. To cover my magnet, I've cut a piece of my plain blue paper. This is the darker of the blue. It is cut to 4 3/4 by 4 1/4. I've inked the edges, and I'm going to adhere this here into the center of my flap here, but I'm going to place it a little bit closer to the score line. Since there will be paper here, then I'll have a larger border on the outside. So I'm going to make sure to measure this right in the center, putting this at 2 1/8 of an inch on either side of center. Next, I'm going to open up my smaller flap. From the light blue paper, I have a piece that's 2 1/4 by 8 inches. I'm going to place this one here, just past my score line, and then I'm going to adhere my ends down to create a pocket. Now that my paper is on, I will take my adhesive and place some on the top and the bottom on my little tiny flap. And then from the center, I'm going to smooth this outward so this lays flat and tight. From the 12 by 12 paper, I've cut this to 5 7/8 by 9 1/2. I've inked my edges, and I will place this here right in the center of the base of my page. From this 12 by 12 paper, I've cut this to 5 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to take my fussy cutting scissors and I'm going to just cut along the edge here and then straight across, because I'm going to be placing this piece here. So I'm just going to cut this edge first, like I said, straight across here, and I will leave the rest, and then I will show you how we're going to place this on the page. Now that I have my bottom trimmed, I'm going to bring this up here to the top. I'm going to place this just past the score line. It will not be even with that photo mat, but then I'm going to place it here, and I'll take my pencil and I'm going to mark where the edge of my paper, my pink paper, is on that piece. It's right about where the corner of my banner is, and I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to cut right up to this. Then I'll lay this back down on here, and now I've got a little tiny pink border. I'm going to come in just a little bit more and trim. So on this side, I do want there to be a little bit more of a pink border. And then I'm going to take my corner rounder and round that upper corner. And I do need to trim this off as well. So instead of trimming it flat, I'm just going to take this and shape this a little differently. So now it will fit on my page. So I'm going to go ahead and ink my edges, and then I'm going to come back and adhere this to the page, but I'm only going to adhere this top part so that my photo will slide underneath of it. When I place my piece on, I've got, if I put it up too close, you will see the pink here. It's not a big deal, but I just prefer not to see it. So I'm going to place my piece so that the edge of this is right at the edge of my photo mat. So I am going to add my adhesive just to this top portion of my piece, leaving that bottom portion open, and then the photo will slide underneath of it. I'm going to take my bone folder and just lift up on this a little bit. That way, when the photo needs to be slid underneath there, it'll be easy to slide under. Next, we're going to prepare the pieces for here and here. From the collectibles paper, I'm going to be cutting this piece first, and I'm going to be cutting this in the center. So you can use a centering ruler if you want to, and you're going to measure 4 inches from the center or 2 inches from each end. And I'm going to be cutting in 1 1/4 inches. Now I have mine marked, but I will show you how I would do this if I was just using my cutting mat or my paper trimmer. Place this in here at 2 inches. I'm going to move this down so that it is even on the 6. Don't mind my head for a moment while I make sure this is lined up. Now I'm going to go up 1 1/4 inches. Then I have this marked, but you can also turn it over this way. 2 inches again from this end and over 1 1/4 inches. Then you'll line it up like this at 1 1/4 inches and at 10 to 2. Now we have our piece. So this piece is going to go here. I need to use my corner rounder on my right two corners, and then I will ink my edges, and I'm going to adhere that to the front of my little pocket. For this piece, I'm going to be using this. So first I'm just going to fussy cut the top of this, leaving the rest of it, then we'll come and we'll trim this to fit in here. So I've taken my piece, like I said, I fussy cut the top. There is this little notch here from where I cut the other piece and I left it. I've cut this to 4 7/8 of an inch, and then I rounded this bottom right-hand corner, inked my edges, and it is going to go right here. Just like with this top piece, I'm going to place this just past the score line, and then I'm going to put the edge of this right against the edge of my blue paper. It'll hang just slightly past my blue paper here, but this is at the edge of that blue paper too. So I'm going to be adhering this down almost the entire piece, but I'm not going to be putting any adhesive on these tips here, and then I'll come back in here and fix that. So for this piece, like I said, no adhesive on those top pieces that are hanging over that photo mat, but you want to have adhesive on that bottom section. Now from that same cut apart sheet, I've cut these two flower pieces, inked my edges. I've pushed these up a little bit just so that I can shape this correctly. I'm going to place this here on top of my violin piece to cover that. And since it will be down on the paper, I'm only placing my adhesive down here on this bottom section, not on that top portion. And I'll put it like this. That way that photo will slide up underneath. And then my little pink flower, I've slightly cut the end off here. I'm going to place it where that corner is. So I'm going to place this on top of here. And I am going to only place a little tiny bit of adhesive on that side and then down at the bottom on that leaf piece, because the rest will be sticking up where that photo needs to slide underneath. And just like the other one, I'm going to go ahead in here and lift up just slightly with my bone folder so that when I go to place my photo in later, it will be easy for it to slide underneath of there. From my 12 by 12 paper, I cut out the little bookmark, and I'm going to place this in here in my pocket. From this 8 by 8 paper, I cut this bottom piece. I did round my corners, and I'm going to place this down here, and I'm only going to adhere this one side. So I'm going to place just a little bit of adhesive on the left-hand portion and place it here. Now you can adhere this down to the bottom if you want to. I think I actually might, it'll strengthen it up a little bit. So I'm just going to place a little bit of adhesive there. Since this is already a pocket, this will just act as a catch-all if this slides down. You can place more in your pocket if you want to, but I'm just going to leave my little bookmark journaling card in here. And that's going to complete that page. For the center, I have one more piece that's 4 1/4 by 4 3/4. I'm going to be placing this here as a pull-out photo mat. You can adhere it down to the page if you want to, whatever you would prefer. Then I have these two pieces from the cut apart, the collectible sheets. I've got my edges inked. I'm going to be placing my Eiffel Tower down here just so that it is lined up with the edge of my blue paper on my flap. It's going to go here. And then this I'm going to place here as a corner tuck. And then that is going to hold this mat so I can put it in here and put 2 photos on it. Or if you want to adhere it to the page, you can adhere it down, and you can adhere it this way or this way, whichever you prefer. For now, I'm just going to be setting my piece in here so that I know where it's going to go on the page. Now, with my Eiffel Tower, I'm going to be adhering it down, and I'm going to adhere this whole bottom portion, and this left side, I'm only going to adhere up this left-hand piece. So I'm going to take this, add my adhesive to the bottom, and then up this side on the flowers, and then just a little tiny bit up the top. And I did put some on the tip because I don't want the tip to get broken off. Now to place this, like I said, I'm going to make sure that it is right at the edge of my paper and that the legs of the Eiffel Tower are lined up with this paper on my flap. Then I would adhere it down, and now I can push this into that, and then place my piece. If you are going to adhere this down, you want to go ahead and do that now, but I'm going to leave mine loose so it comes out. And I'm going to add this here and here. So I'm only applying my adhesive to these edges on the right-hand side and the bottom. So now I have my tuck spot for my photo mat. Next, I'm going to decorate the top of my photo mat. So I'm going to move this out of the way first. From my 8x8 papers, I've cut these 2 little ovals and inked my edges. I'm going to be placing this in the center of my photo mat. So I'm going to add some adhesive to the top half of my piece. And I'm going to be adhering it to the other one. First, I need to mark the center of this so I know where to place this. And now I'm going to just move this down slightly below center because I have a little bit of adhesive that I want to catch the top of that photo mat edge. And then I'm going to take my other piece and put it on from the back side to adhere those 2 together. So now on both sides, my little tab is open for photos to slide underneath. Then from my collectibles papers, I did cut some flowers. You want to make sure that you've cut these from the double-sided ones, so not from the back page, because those have the packaging on the outside of them. So just make sure that you have the correct flowers. And I'm going to place these on either side of my tab pieces. And I've got some leaves here too. So I think I'm just going to play around with these until I like the look. and then I would adhere just the top portion down so that again, my photo will slide underneath. And I kind of like the look of that. So I'm going to move this portion out first. And I'm just going to place a little thin line of adhesive here across the top. Layering my papers as I go. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's really whatever your preference is. So don't feel like it has to look exactly like mine. Just arrange them until you like the look. Once you have one side, go ahead and do the same thing to the opposite side, adding some adhesive and then adhering those flowers onto the top. Now you can shape these if you want to a little bit. I will just curl mine slightly because they are going to be underneath those flaps. I don't want too much bulk. Then I'm going to bring my page in, slide my mat underneath here. And then I've got from my adhesive paper cutouts, just this one sign, and I'm going to place it here, but I'm not going to take the paper off the entire piece. That way, again, the photo will slide behind it. So I'm going to lift up from the bottom, and then I'm going to tear this paper away so that the top portion still has the paper on it. And I think I'm going to layer it underneath of that piece right there. So now I'm going to go ahead and close my flaps. They will stay with the magnet, and then we'll build up the front of this flap and be finished with the front of page 1. I have the girl from the collectibles papers that I'm going to be placing here on the side. From my flower assortment, I've selected this. I'm going to be placing here. And this is a little bit thick because of these spring pieces. So I'm just going to use my bone folder to flatten them slightly to give it just a little bit less bulk, but to leave those in the piece. I'm going to place it here on the corner like this, and I'll put her here like this. I've debated about whether or not I want to put her on some chipboard to pop her up and give her a little bit of dimension, but I think I'm just going to leave her flat like this. Then I have one of these little tickets and a flower from the paper, and I've got the little film strip piece from my my die cuts. So I'm going to layer those up here on top of the ones that are already here. I might curl this up a little bit just to give it a little bit of dimension too. And then add this. And then for my flower, I will add a little bit of dimension by curling those sides up. And I'm going to place it on top of my chipboard like this. So I will start by adding my flower. and adhering it right down to the corner of the paper. And then taking her, for this cluster here, I will need to place my blue ticket piece first and then my chipboard piece second. I'll add my adhesive to both. That way I can place them kind of around the same time, like this. And then again, this piece will be right on top of this edge here, like this. This is it for the tutorial. In the next tutorial, we will begin decorating the back of page 1, so stay tuned for that. And if you are just joining the tutorial series, don't forget to go into the description box below where you will find all of the Stamperia Ooh La La papers, the flowers, and the chipboard pieces that I am using to create this album. They are linked in the description box below to the Scrap and Create website. See you in the next tutorial.